For joining us today. We are going to cover conversion rate optimization, focusing on best practices for both B2B and B2C websites. I am Rachel McMahon. I am the SEO strategist here at Anvil. I am joined by Carrie Schroeder, our paid media specialist, and we are very excited to walk you through this webinar today. Just as a reminder, this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, and you will also be able to download the webinar deck on our website. So stay tuned for that. It should be up shortly. And without further ado, let's get started and talking about conversion rate optimization.
All right, thanks, Rachel. So today our agenda will talk through what is CRO, what is a conversion funnel and how it applies to CRO, the buying cycle and calls to action. We'll talk through landing pages and best practices for how to build them in regards to conversion rate optimization. We'll also talk through some heat map testing and then a quick summary at the end as well. So just a quick overview of what is conversion rate optimization. It's essentially efforts that focus on increasing the percentage of visitors to your website that convert into customers or more generally take a desired action. So anyone who's, buying a product or making a purchase, downloading a resource, signing up for newsletters, submitting a contact form request, a demo request, anything like that, any type of meeting request or resource download or purchase is considered an action that would increase those people who convert into customers. So this is the best way to track your conversion rate optimization and optimize your website best for that effort. So just a quick overview of a conversion funnel. Essentially, it's a visual representation of the process a person takes to move through the steps leading up to the conversion action. So I'm sure most of you have seen this in some capacity. So just a quick run through of the top levels are awareness, interest, and consideration. And then you get down into intent and finally the final action, which in this case is showing it as a purchase, but anything that you would consider your final conversion action, like we talked about on the last page, where they're completing the action that you want them to take that is contributing to that overall conversion rate optimization. And typically as people move down this funnel, they become a more qualified lead and a more likely to make a purchase or complete that action. So you want to just make sure that each step of this has the appropriate content or calls to action to make sure that it applies to the people who are completing it.
Cool. And somewhat related to that is what we refer to as the buying cycle. It's somewhat similar to conversion funnels, but it's more at a high level. And what we are talking about in terms of the buying cycle is essentially a process that every single person goes through when they are making some sort of decision or purchase. And so for the buying cycle, there are really three main stages. The first is awareness. So it's when a person becomes aware that they have a need, a pain, or a problem. The second stage is consideration. So this is where the person will start to do research to understand what options are available, what solutions are available, and what types of options would best suit their needs. And then the third phase or the third stage is the decision. So this is when the person makes a purchase, they hire a service, they complete whatever that desired action is. So that is when the conversion happens. And so as Carrie was saying, whatever stage of the buying cycle you are trying to communicate to will obviously then determine how you craft your calls to action, how you are able to connect with your users and actually get them from just users and get them to convert to become leads or potential customers. And when we say calls to action, sometimes you'll see those as CTA. That is just referring to a website element that is prompting a user to take some sort of specified actions. So sometimes these are buttons, they can be forms, they can be just any sort of website element that is getting a user to make that desired or complete that desired action. So these are often crafted as very direct commands because, again, the goal is to get our users to complete that desired action. So these are probably some of the more important website elements that we are looking to really fine tune and perfect because their messaging, their accessibility, their visibility, all of those are really going to determine how successful your conversion rates will be. So kind of tying that back to the buying cycle and understanding how we can communicate to each user who's in each of the phases of the buying cycle. So going back to the first phase or the first stage of awareness. So this is when somebody just realizes that they need something, they just realize they have a problem. So the user has no idea what's available to them. They need more information. So we would not be too successful in something like buy now, but maybe we want to get them some additional information that will continue them through that conversion funnel. So something like subscribe to get the latest information. Then if somebody goes into the consideration phase, they still need more information in order to make a decision, but they're looking to narrow down their options. So again, probably not a really sales focused call to action, but maybe something that will connect with them in terms of getting questions answered. That might be more successful than just, again, a straightforward sales approach of buy now or purchase here. Again, consideration is where users are still doing their research. They're still looking to narrow down their options. So we want to be a little bit more aware in terms of getting their needs met, how we can get their needs met. And then the third stage, decision, this is when the user is finally ready to convert. They're finally ready to make that desired action. They don't want to do any additional work. They're not looking to read any more information. So these are the users that are going to benefit from the purchase here, schedule an appointment, those very direct calls to action. So again, thinking about what stage of the buying cycle you are trying to connect with will determine how you ultimately craft your calls to action on your website. And then this is just a really great example of how calls to action will then work users through the funnel. So again, at the very top, we have the awareness stage. And so this is an example pulled from Moz, which is a software we use on the SEO side of things. And so at the very beginning, the very top of the screenshot there, you see we are in the awareness phase. And the call to action here is try Moz Pro for free. So a user is not needing to purchase anything. They're not needing to submit any sort of payment information. It's just a simple option of giving users the ability to try the tool for free. And so then the user can move into the consideration phase where they can insert their domain to be analyzed by this tool. And so the tool will then give users the understanding of, does the tool function in a way that I need it to? Does the tool give me the sort of information that I need? Will this tool be beneficial to me or my team? And then you can also see above that call to action, there are a few selling points as to why this tool would be, useful in terms of an SEO team. And then once a user gets to the decision point, you can see just get started with Moz Pro. It's a very direct call to action. So the user is ready to get started. They've done all their research. They understand the tool is going to be a good fit for them. And so the user can then just submit their information and then go from there. So as you can see, it's a very visual approach to understand how your calls to action will vary depending on what stage of the buying cycle you are communicating to.
And then just a quick transition into then where these call to actions live and how the pages on your site should be optimized for conversion rate. So there's four primary areas that should be optimized for conversions. That's the homepage, pricing page, blogs, and landing pages. So the homepage, that's the first impression people have of your site. And it's also an opportunity to retain the site visitors and guide them through other areas of your site. So you want to make sure that the homepage is optimized. It has, the calls to action on it. It has navigation. It has easy ways for people to navigate through your site. And you also want it to be very user-friendly since that is the first impression and you want to make sure people have a good experience on the site. The next on the pricing page, it can help turn a visit into a purchase and should be optimized in a way that entices the visitor to make a purchase. So some of the ways to optimize would be showing pricing intervals, the features associated with each price point. So, if there is a pricing interval, the cheapest price and what features are associated with it, and then as they, maybe select different levels of features, the pricing is different. But just so that they're aware of what they're getting with each of those price points, providing a phone number for people to easily call for pricing or other information if they're having any trouble on the site, or adding a pop-up chat window so that they can instantly ask questions and get help as they need it. It just helps improve the user experience, and it makes people more likely to buy when they can easily ask questions and get any problems solved quickly. And then with blogs, utilizing those blogs for conversion rate optimization can be a huge win, and including calls to action throughout those blog articles, asking for an email in exchange for a piece of content or thought leadership, or just even having a demo request option in there for those who maybe are familiar with your brand and just happen to read the blog and just decided that kind of pushed them into that phase of wanting to complete that action. As many calls to action, as are relevant throughout that article is great. And then on the landing pages, so typically landing pages are inherently meant to convert people, and they're typically used for very specific things, and usually only in one or two places. And so you want to make sure that it's a very clear call to action, whether it's content download, event attendance, just making sure that that landing page has a very clear direction that you want people to take, so that when they do complete the action on that page, it's very directly related to what the page is about. So one of the ways that you can help modify your landing pages, especially for a CRO, is A/B testing. And the idea of that can be used across many mediums and platforms, but landing pages is definitely the most impactful. It's essentially the process of creating two separate versions of a landing page that both show an equal number, or should both shown to an equal number of visitors. And then the version that converts better is the one that you determine the winner of that test. And then, you can continue testing beyond that. And this can be used on, specific landing pages, but it can also be used on other pages on the site if you just want to see how a certain section of the site, if you change it a little bit, how it does compared to the non-changed version. So it doesn't have to be strictly for landing pages. That's just typically the most often and common use case for that. And the testing can either be two completely different pages. So if you have two very different versions of that landing page and want to test them against each other, that's a possibility. But if you want to just see even what call to action text on a button resonates better, you can have the exact same page with just a different call to action text on the button, or changing the color scheme of one section of the page, things like that. So it can be very small things, or it can be testing two completely different pages. But in both situations, it's going to help determine which page is going to convert better, and then prompt any further testing going forward. And then making sure that the user experience is good on your website across all areas is imperative. It helps with the quality of user interactions and experiences with a product and system. So we definitely want to make sure that pages are optimized for page speed and loading times. If your page doesn't load fast, it will cause higher bounce rates. You do want to have the main navigation or main menu, especially on your more general website pages, to make sure that it's easy for people to navigate from section to section of your site without having to dig around for those links, or roundabout ways of getting to those pages. Your website functionality, so just the overall functionality of the website, make sure that it's user friendly, things are easy to find, and that it's functioning at a high speed. And then also the mobile experience of the website being optimized for a mobile device, so it condenses when seen on a mobile device, and just making sure that that experience, it matches what they're getting, what they would get on a desktop computer. And then that'll present a positive overall experience, and it'll ultimately improve your conversion rates because users will stay on the page longer, they'll interact with the website elements more frequently, and be more likely to return to the website later on for multiple visits, and ultimately, hopefully, completing a conversion on the page.
Perfect. So then we will talk about landing pages. So when we say landing pages, this is a specific page on your website that is essentially designed to convert users who either navigate to the page from your marketing campaigns or just navigate to the page from the main menu. And so when we talk about successful landing pages, what those look like is they contain some of these 4 bullet points. So the first bullet point is a landing page will clearly explain the offer or promotion and its benefits. So you'll know exactly what the offer is, you'll understand what the benefits of the promotion are. So that way, when a user comes to the landing page from a marketing campaign, there will be a clear connection between the two. We'll also have a call to action that is immediately accessible and immediately visible. These days, users want to do the least amount of work possible. And so presenting a call to action right in front of a user without them having to scroll or navigate to a different page or section of the website in order to find a call to action will just make your landing pages that much more successful. Again, kind of tying this back to what Carrie was just talking about, making sure the landing pages offer a positive user experience. Again, users don't want to do a ton of effort these days to convert. So making sure that users can convert in an efficient way will also help your conversion rate optimization. And then we'll also want to make sure that landing pages support mobile users. So if the landing page functions a certain way on desktop, it should also function that way on mobile. It shouldn't be difficult to find these call to action messages or these benefits of promotions, things like that. So you also want to make sure that mobile users will also have a positive experience when they come to your landing pages.
And then on this example of a landing page, one thing I do want to call out, and you'll see this kind of on the next page with some examples as well, is that this is there's very minimal things to click on this landing page. So there's a very clear call to action. You can either download that strategy worksheet or schedule a call. It's, you don't, on a landing page that you're using for a very specific use, typically having that kind of minimal, very clear, this is the direction this page is going, is optimal, so that whatever action you want them to complete, they can complete on that page and not start navigating through other pages and ultimately not complete that action. So just as some other examples, these specific landing pages are very good examples of what the landing page should look like. So on most pages, when a user visits, it's very rare that they will scroll down significantly far, especially the first time visiting a page. So you want to make sure that the calls to action are above the fold and above, kind of that bottom area where people will just have to scroll past. And so the top one is it's very simple. There's a very, very clear headline, very clear subheadline, and a button call to action. It's very clear what this page wants the person to do. There is a little bit more navigation on that page than would typically be on a use case specific landing page, but this could just be a landing page that's used generically across the site. So it's not necessarily necessary to not have that. And then the bottom one is a very, very basic, just this is what, clear called headline, clear subheader, and just give us these 2 small pieces of information to get more info. And, so both of these are really great examples of how to optimize a landing page. You want to make sure that these pages also pass what they call the blink test. So you want to make sure that everything is very clear, easy to read, and I can look at this page, blink, and know what this page is asking me to do or what the page is about. That'll just make the user experience better, and it gives them a very clear next step as far as converting. And it also will help just increase that overall conversion because it'll help people in that direction.
Perfect. So then the last section that we'll touch on will cover heat map testing, which is one of my favorite things to do at Anvil Media. And so when we are talking about heat map testing, this is what involves the collection of data into an image that will tell us where the hot areas of that web page are and where the cold areas are. And so somewhat, obvious in terms of the naming, but the hot areas are where users are really gravitating towards, their attention is mostly directed there, or that's where the users are engaging with site elements the most. And any cold areas are areas of the web page that are typically getting ignored. And so the reason we use heat map testing is to get deeper insights into user behavior and customer journeys throughout your website. So we can get a wide variety of understandings around user behavior, but some of the more common reasons we use heat map testing is to understand things like what buttons users are clicking on the most, what the typical user journey looks like, so where the user lands when they come on the website, what pages they typically visit, if they leave the website, and what page they were on when they left. Again, where users dropped off. So if there was an area of the website where users are starting to leave more commonly, or if there is a technical issue, we can pinpoint that through heat map testing. We can understand how users appreciate the mobile experience, so we can understand how the website functions on mobile, what users are seeing, what users are experiencing when they come to the site on their mobile devices. We can understand if users are getting frustrated, so we can see if users are clicking on the same element over and over again. We usually call those rage clicks. We can understand if they are experiencing technical issues, if somebody clicks on a button and nothing happens. That is an easy thing to understand from heat map testing. So these, again, are just some of the more common things, pieces of information that we can get from heat map testing, but we can get a much deeper dive around user behavior, user engagements. That's very helpful in the long run. And so there are a number of different testing tools available, but at Anvil, we have a few that we like to recommend just based on how easy they are to implement, how easy they are to use, and just their cost as well. So Hotjar and Crazy Egg are pretty much the same in terms of what you are able to get. They both offer free and paid subscriptions. With free, you have a limited number of pages that you can test, but both free and paid subscriptions are equally beneficial. They're very easy to install, and the interface of both these platforms is very easy to use. It's simple and it's very intuitive as well. So there's not a lot of, there's not a huge learning curve in order to really get the most out of these platforms. And along with the heat mapping that we were just talking about, you can also get user recordings. So it's essentially like watching a movie of your users as they navigate throughout your site. You can see exactly what they were looking at, what pages they went to. And it's essentially like you were there with the user as they were on your site. And then we can also get scroll data as well, which is just understanding how far on any given page a user scrolled. And then on the right-hand side, we also have Microsoft Clarity. We do recommend this tool just because it is entirely free. It's not as intuitive as Hotjar or Crazy Egg, so there is a little bit more of a learning curve here, but you do still get the pieces of data that you see in Hotjar and Crazy Egg. You get the heat mapping, the user recording, scroll data, things like that. The only difference here is that it is free and it's easy to install, but the dashboard and the actual functionality, it does take a little bit longer to learn. And so if you have a B2B website, B2B brands really oftentimes have what we call a more lengthy sales cycle. So it's not like an e-commerce site where a user comes to the site, they make a purchase, and then that's it. B2B brands have, several interactions with potential customers. The sales cycles take a long time to close. And oftentimes we find that these leads are expensive as well. So that's where heat map testing is very beneficial to B2B brands because we can capitalize on the traffic that navigates to your site, and we can better understand how to adjust the user experience, how to optimize these conversion points to capitalize on that traffic and to take advantage of the people that have come to your site and understanding how we can best turn these users into leads. So for B2B websites specifically, we can use heat map testing to understand our call to action messaging. So we can use this to refine the messaging we have for our calls to action. So we can test to see how the messaging affects user engagement. So kind of tying this back to the A/B testing we were talking about a little bit earlier, we can test one variation of a call to action against a second variation, and we can see which one users are most likely to engage with. We can also see how much of the actual content users are reviewing. So tying this into the scroll data and just the heat map testing overall, we can see where users are putting their attention, where users are typically ignoring, to see how much information users are actually digesting when they come to the landing page or the actual website. You can see things like user behavior. You can get those really deep insights into how users navigate throughout your site or how they engage with your landing page. So then you can optimize for your conversion funnel. So again, depending on which phase of the buying cycle or which stage of the conversion funnel you are trying to connect with, that will determine how we can optimize our pages for conversion rate optimization. And then we can also just simply understand how effective the landing pages are as well. So if we're seeing a lot of red or hot places on our heat maps, we can generally understand that landing pages are effective because they're helping to drive more engagement from users. Again, the whole point of a landing page is to get users to complete that desired action. So if we can validate that through heat map testing, we can understand that our landing pages are set up for success. And then for B2C websites, pretty much any sort of website would benefit from heat map testing, but really B2C websites are probably the websites that would arguably benefit the most from this tool and this capability. So whether you are selling a product, whether you are selling a service, this heat map testing capability is really crucial because you can understand if your web pages are designed to make it easy for users to browse, to get more information. So if they're in that consideration phase, you can understand if you are giving users enough information to then proceed and make a purchase or convert. You can understand if users are adding products to their shopping cart, but they're not purchasing. So maybe they found interest in certain products, but for some reason, they didn't actually follow through and complete the transaction. Maybe there is an issue with the shopping cart. Kind of tying that into this third bullet point, just overall technical issues on the website that could prevent users from making a purchase or booking an appointment or hiring you for a service. That we've found that pretty much every time we've done heat map testing in some way, shape, or form, it's really helpful to pinpoint those technical issues that you wouldn't really normally find without heat map testing. And then you can also understand if users are gravitating towards certain calls to action on your website as well. So again, kind of similar to what we talked about on the B2B slide, you can test out which calls to action are getting more clicks, more engagement from your users to understand which would be more successful, which you should probably feature more throughout your website. Again, just to get more of those users converting and then turning into either customers or leads. And then we can also use heat map testing for A/B testing purposes as well. So because heat map testing allows you to get that real world data about how your website design impacts user engagement, how the user experience functions, heat map testing is an excellent resource to leverage for A/B testing. You can really use it to get a solid understanding of how different website layouts, designs, functions, how that all impacts user experience or user engagements in the long run. And so simply by testing one variation of your landing page versus a second variation, that's an easy way to A/B test with heat map testing because you can just compare the two. Look at how the heat map changed from one variation to the other. You can see what caused users to click on the buttons more, which caused users to fill the forms more, things like that. So it's a really a pretty helpful tool, pretty effective tool if you are looking for A/B testing purposes as well.
And just real quick, Rachel, these numbers that are showing on the page, are those like the order of the clicks that somebody did on the page, or what is that showing us?
So this screenshot is pulled from Microsoft Clarity. And so the numbers will actually correlate to the different website elements that users are clicking on. So
Got it.
the number 1 will represent either the about element or the main menu element, whereas the number 2 on the Anvil Media site, we have drop downs. So the number 2 is probably representing one of those drop down items. So yeah, the numbers are actually correlated to the actual website elements that the user clicked on.
Got it. Okay.
Perfect. And then just to wrap everything up, basically we were talking about conversion rate optimization, and the conversion rate optimization aims to increase the percentage of users who come to your website that actually convert into customers. So the goal is to increase that number of people who come to your site and then actually convert or complete that desired action. We can improve our conversion rate optimization through specially crafted calls to action, making sure the user experience is positive. So that way users will not only want to come to your site and come to your pages multiple times, it will also help them to actually engage with those site elements more often. A/B testing is very helpful to ensure web pages are optimized. We can understand which are best performing using A/B testing. We recommend optimizing landing pages according to your ultimate goal. In order to optimize the landing pages, make sure the objective of the page, make sure the call to action are, both of those elements are clear. And we also recommend that they are above the fold to make it immediately visible and immediately accessible to users who come to the landing page. Heatmap testing is an excellent tool that offers much deeper insights into user behavior and customer journeys. And if you are a B2B brand or a B2C brand, pretty much any type of website would benefit from leveraging heatmap testing because it allows you to make those data-driven decisions. You're not just guessing about website design, layouts, functionality. You actually have the data to back up your decisions. So all of those are really going to help improve your conversion rate optimization. And so if you would like help improving your conversion rate optimization, you can either feel free to contact us. You can go to our website and fill out the contact form. Our team is always here. We're always happy to help and support you, answer questions. And as I mentioned, this deck is actually going to be available for download on our website. You can navigate through to this page and you can find the deck available for download there. So we thank you for joining us today to talk about conversion rate optimization. And our next webinar in June is going to be about Google Ads and paid media. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. And if you would like, you can register to save your spot. They are free, but it's nice to have the reserved spot so that way you get the reminder the day of the webinar.
Awesome. Thanks for everyone for joining, and hopefully they'll see you next month on our next webinar. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw those in the chat or ask them out loud. If not, that we will wrap up for this webinar.